This is one of my most anticipated videos to date. I've been thinking about doing this for a long time now. Check out this image. You've probably seen some of these builds, right? But I bet you haven't seen this before. That's what we're doing. So let me break this down for you. Essentially, this is 156 offcuts of 2x4s. It's gonna take a while to get through these cuts, but this is actually a really simple project, and I happen to have a miter saw, so that's gonna help me out tremendously, but we're gonna jump into it. Let's go. If you look at the image, you can tell that there are different thicknesses of the offcuts that are on the flag itself. So I thought about it a bit, and I was thinking about cutting 1/4, 1/2, and 3/4 of an inch thick offcuts. But then I was thinking, just to make it a little simpler, I'm just gonna cut 1/2 inch and 3/4 inch offcuts. Let me show you what I did. So I clamped an offcut of a piece of wood at 3/4 of an inch. But what I'm gonna do is mix them up, and kind of throughout the piece, it'll be somewhat hopefully wavy. And yeah, it just will be kind of imperfect, which I like the look. It'll be a little more rustic looking. Now, I bought a 2 feet by 4 foot piece of MDF as my backing. It's 1/2 inch, as well as 1x2 boards for my trim. I have a ton of cutting to do. So here comes time lapses.
So one thing that I did not mention is the fact that this little offcut actually kept moving as I was pushing the boards against it. So if you look real closely, you'll see me readjusting it from time to time. But I think it actually worked out in my favor because it varied the thickness of each cut.
Whew. All right, so I've been sawing for about an hour now. I need to make about 160-ish offcuts of 2x4s, and always want to interrupt my videos. Anyways, check out the mess. How do we turn this around? I can't turn.
Wow,
Look at that.
that's a lot of sawdust.
Got a bit of a mound here.
You know what they call that, Zach?
No, what do they call that, Martina?
Man glitter.
Thank you. I got a lot of it. As much as I don't want to, I gotta clean it up. One of the parts of doing videos and projects and stuff, so here we go. If you look at the image, it shows that there are 12 offcuts horizontally and 13 offcuts vertically. So I'm gonna kind of lay them out here to get a rough estimate of size. And then once we do that, I'm gonna sand them down a little bit, and I'm contemplating on whether or not to paint them before I glue them or to glue them and then paint them. But I'll figure that out later. So let's get them laid out.
Before this shot, Martina actually pointed out that 12 offcuts wide was a little too long for the flag, so I ended up knocking off 2 columns of offcuts. You don't see it here, but you'll see it later on in the video.
All right, so obviously it's not perfectly straight, but you kind of get the idea of the height and the width now. So let's get some more on there.
If you look really closely while I lay these out, you can actually see that the ratio is not right. So by taking those last 2 columns off, it actually helped a lot.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're doing a little trial by fire here. I have my airstrike here, and I've been contemplating on how to put these on the MDF board. I'm gonna make it work, whatever happens. And again, this is gonna be hanging on the wall, so whichever wall I end up putting it on. I'm actually gonna do a quick little sanding, like hand sanding, very simple, just to kind of, you know, knock some of this stuff off. And then I'm gonna get my glue out. I'm just gonna start getting it down. I'm gonna do paint last. I think I decided I'm gonna do paint last. So, yeah. Let's do this.
So my goal in this was to use the edges as the guide. After I got the first few down, I was able to push all the other offcuts to keep everything in alignment. It wasn't perfect, but it worked pretty well. There was a ton of gluing, and I wasn't originally going to use my brad nailer, but it actually worked out really well. This whole process took about 4 hours over a period of 3 days. It was really cool seeing it come together.
So I'm finally done. I have glued and nailed down all, however many pieces are actually on here now. This was definitely a tedious process. It took me around 4 hours over about 3 days to do all of the gluing and nailing. But I got it done, and it's not perfect, but I'm really excited. But there's a slight issue. Yeah, I put them into the sawhorse top. So what I'm gonna do before I cut the edges is pull this out of the sawhorse, and I have to go through and cut off the end of all the nails underneath on the back side, because it's not gonna go against the wall with it the way it is now. So yeah, let's do that. All right, this side's out. Whew, look at that. Ridiculous. All right, let's get these out. I'm finishing up drawing out my cut lines, and I'm gonna take my saw and cut right on top of these lines. Once I'm done with that, I'm gonna do just a little bit of sanding, just to bring the wood pieces flush with the edge, and then it'll be ready for paint.
My goal in the sanding was to get the offcuts in the backing board to be flush with each other, so that when I went to put on the trim around the edges, it would all sit flush. I had just actually gotten this multi-tool for Father's Day, so it worked out really well. By the way, if you don't have a multi-tool and you have the money, this is one tool that's worth investing in because of how versatile it is.
All right, so we're almost done. I'm trying to get this wrapped up. What I went ahead and did is I taped up the stripes as well as this corner for the blue part. So I did this trick that I saw online where you take a razor blade and you put it in between each piece of wood. Or if you're doing slats of wood, you kind of put it at the end of the mark you need. So anyways, I put it in between essentially to make a barrier for the paint. And then just as another safety precaution, I put some actual tape on it. So anyways, I have my assistant here. This is my oldest. Her name is Melody. And she's gonna help me paint the red stripes. And then I'm gonna help you, when I'm done with the blue, I'm gonna help you do the red, okay?
With that other
Yeah, I've got another paintbrush over there. So I have a paintbrush, and you have a paintbrush. And we have another paintbrush for the red. 2 for the red, 1 for the blue.
Yeah.
Are we ready?
Ready.
There you go. All right. Make sure it's nice. Yeah, make sure it's nice and everywhere, okay?
It's okay. It'll drip onto the paint.
Yeah. Nice deep blue. Look at that.
I don't like hide in the corner like Mom was in her videos.
Do you watch my other videos?
Yeah?
Who's my biggest fan? Do you know what that means?
No.
Who likes my videos the most? You do?
Yeah.
Well, thank you for watching my videos. All right, so quick update. Blue's looking really good. Are you doing a good job, Melody?
Yes.
Yeah. And the red's looking pretty good. Getting there. It's dripping a little bit, but that's okay. We'll fix it. And she's filling in all the parts so you don't see any wood. For the most part. But we'll get it. So we still have the rest of the stripes to do. And I'm going to help her now. And we're going to get this thing done. Do you want to say anything to the camera?
Not really.
No? Okay. It's like we're painting outside, but in our own house.
So just in the garage.
Just in the garage. Just in the garage.
A plain old dirty garage.
Plain old what?
Dirty garage.
Dirty? I'm trying to make it better.
Yeah.
You gotta be patient with me.
Only one wall is painted.
I know, I'm working on that wall soon. Upcoming video. And I'm gonna be painting this wall too, okay?
There's just something about staining wood. My method, and I think it's a common one, is you wipe it on with a rag or something, or a towel, and then as soon as you're done, you wipe it back off. Pretty simple process, but it's pretty relaxing. So this part was pretty straightforward. Put glue on the sides for the trim. I attempted to use tape at first, but that did not work well. So then I used clamps just to hold it up in place temporarily, and that didn't work very well either. So then I hit it with some brad nails, and you can see it went through the bottom, so I wasn't shooting it straight. Now this was only temporary because later on I'm going to use a ratchet clamp to clamp the frame together while the glue dries. You can see here that I have clamps around the edges. I was having a really difficult time getting the ratchet clamp to stay in place. So what I ended up doing is using the clamps just to hold it from falling off. And then once I had it tight enough, I could remove them. The funny thing too was the actual ratchet itself, I got it all the way to the end where it was tight enough and I couldn't get it one more click just to lock in place. So what I ended up doing was getting 2 or 3 other clamps and kind of clamping it from there all the way to the side of the frame. It's not ideal, but it worked out. After that, I went and I grabbed 2 of my sash or bar clamps and used those to clamp the sides, just to make sure I had really good clamping all around. Once I was done with that, I let it sit overnight, and then this project was done.
Hey, thank you guys so much for checking out my video. This was quite the project. It was pretty tedious. I wouldn't necessarily say it was hard, but there were a lot of steps and it was a lot of fun to make. There are tons of videos on YouTube with the American flags that are wooden slats, but I have not seen any yet that have these offcuts. And when I saw it on Pinterest, I was like, I gotta try to make that. And it's obviously very rustic, very kind of has an unfinished look, which I think is really cool. This is probably not for everyone, but for those of you who really dig it, thanks for checking it out. I'm like sweating right now because I'm in my garage. So I think I'm gonna call it for this video. I'm really happy with the way this turned out. Is it perfect? No, but I think it looks pretty dope. So catch you guys in the next one.